The labor market right now is crazy, and every time I turn around, I get a question from someone who's looking to break into the HR industry, wondering what they can do to really set themselves apart. This is encouraging to me as an HR professional after being in the industry for 15 years. When I got into HR, it really wasn't one that you were in college and you were wondering, okay, what can I do to get into HR? That wasn't a thing 15 years ago. So to see that now be so commonplace and to see so many up and coming professionals interested in moving and breaking into the HR industry, it gives me a lot of encouragement and it really inspires me to keep doing this work that I'm doing here on this channel. Today, we're talking about the things you need to know to ace your HR interview. Whether you're looking to go into a brand new position at a new company or whether you're trying to move up into the company where you already work, these are the things that you do not need to overlook. And I'm going to give you some insider knowledge so that you can make sure you make the most of this opportunity. Hey, welcome back to my channel. This is Brittany Graddick, CEO and founder of Talented Teams Consulting, and I am back with day number 23 of this 30-day series where I'm talking with HR professionals about ways to build your career with intention. The goal of this 30-day series is to talk about ways to not only build your credibility and build your experience, but ultimately to transform your career so that you can build a thriving and productive career that you can be proud of and that you love. If you're in the market for a new opportunity right now and you're wondering what you can do to really get eyes on your application and an opportunity for an interview, go ahead and get pen and paper and go ahead and start taking some notes on this. And if you get any value from it, circle back and leave me a comment below. I would love to know if this helped you. Too often what I see when we're reviewing applications and cover letters and resumes is that when people just apply to a lot of positions at one time and they make their resume very, very general. That is not going to serve you well if you're really trying to put your best foot forward. The people that do get the interviews and the opportunities to get that first impression face-to-face are going to be the ones that really take close attention to the notes that I'm talking about today. Getting the interview is not enough. So today we're going to be talking about how to not only get the interview, but also to make the most of the interview once you're there. So number one, we're going to make sure that you have just the resume basics covered. So first impressions are everything. You might think that the first impression starts when you're walking into the interview room, but if your resume and your cover letter and your application is not up to par, you won't even get that far. The first impression is your application, and the first impression is your resume. Now, I get it. I've seen the memes, and some people are like, well,
if I put the information in the application and I put it in the notes, why do I have to upload a resume?
The cynic in me says, first of all, do you want a job or not? Second of all, can you follow instructions or can you not follow instructions? Third of all, because the system, the applicant tracking system that the company is likely using, uses the information that you input into the application. So where you work, length of service, prior titles and things of that nature to kind of put you through a screening process to see if you meet the minimum requirements. But the resume shows a different side of you. It's more than just the basics. The resume tells me how organized are you. The resume tells me how much thought and effort are you putting into this opportunity. The resume tells me, is your resume tailored to this opportunity? Is there another company that you're referencing within your resume? Believe it or not, we've seen this before. If you really want your resume to stand out, if you really want your application to stand apart from the others, don't just do the bare minimum. Don't just rely on what's inputted over from your Indeed profile to be enough for you to be able to get this opportunity. If you really want to be serious about it, update your resume, specify it to the job that you're looking for, and make sure that you are putting your best foot forward, even on paper. The second thing I want to make sure that you do is have a voicemail set up. As I say these things, please hear my heart on it. I say these things and it sounds like I'm being funny, but I'm not. You will be amazed the number of people who apply for jobs and they don't check their email, or they don't have a voicemail set up, or they don't respond to the text messages when we send them out. So you've got to make sure that if you are applying for jobs, actively seeking other employment, that you are available to receive communication if you're selected to move forward in the process. If you leave a contact number, make sure that you have a voicemail set up. If you have a voicemail box, make sure that your voicemail box is empty and can receive voicemails. You will be surprised the number of people that we reach out to and either the voicemail box has not been set up or the voicemail box is full and is not accepting messages. The number of times we see these things, it just tells me, one, either you thought you really weren't going to get this call, or you thought you really weren't going to be selected, or you're just not taking close attention to detail. If you're applying for a position in HR, you've got to pay close attention to detail. You've got to have a sense of urgency. There's so many skills and things you need to keep in mind. And so as you do these things, when you're in the recruiting process, you're already being considered and you're already being reviewed to see, is this person going to fit or not? Can this person follow instructions? Does this person see things through from beginning to the end? There's so many things that we're looking from. And as an HR professional, you're going to be held to a higher standard because you're likely going to be the one who's interviewing and selecting and screening and recruiting. So if you can't do it for yourself, how can we trust you to look for other people to do the same thing? So within your voicemail, make sure you have a clear voicemail message set up. One where I can hear you, one where there's not a lot of background noise going on. If you know that your name is difficult to pronounce, say your name in your voicemail. That way that the recruiter can talk to you and say your name and understand how to speak it. For example, my name is spelled Bryttani, but the pronunciation that I get of my name, even though it's Brittany, is crazy. So if knowing that, if I was applying for another job, I would make sure that in my voicemail, I say, hey, you've reached Brittany. I'm unable to take your call right now. Please leave your name and number, and I'll get back with you at my earliest convenience. Simple. Having your voicemail set up with your name, with your clear message, is going to make it super easy for someone to be able to reach out to you. And just making sure that if you're actively looking for opportunities, that you're checking your contact forms, your text messages, your email, your voicemail, so that people can get back in contact with you if they want to schedule an interview with you or need any follow-up information. The next thing I would do is to clean up your social media presence. So social media is something that some employers check and some employers don't check. Honestly, I don't check social media as an HR professional. I just don't believe it's the best way to do it. But there are some that differ from that opinion. Some people do check, and it's part of their recruiting process. It's not part of my recruiting process, but it's a part of others. So knowing that, make sure that you have things on your profile that might not be appealing to a potential employer, that you either turn your privacy settings on so that other people can't see it, or you just make sure that you just take those things off. Just scrub your social media profiles as well as you can. You've got to make sure that you take into consideration that you have a personal brand, whether you believe it or not. And even if you don't have a business, you have a personal brand. Everything that you put out on social media is part of your personal brand. So as your employer or potential employer looks at your personal brand online, that's going to reflect positively or negatively on who decides to employ you. So you've got to take that into consideration. Moving into 2023 and beyond, the things that we do online are going to follow us even more so than they have in the past. So being super, super intentional about the way that you set yourself up online is going to be paramount. It's going to be non-negotiable. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that as we move into the future. So the first 3 tips there were all about ways to make sure you get the interview. You want to make sure that your resume speaks for you. Make sure that your application is clear. You've got a voicemail and your things are set up so that people can reach out to you and your social media presence is clear. Now that you've gotten the interview, what are the things you want to make sure you do when you're in that interview seat, whether it's a phone interview or whether it's a face-to-face interview, to prepare yourself to really set yourself apart from the competition, because you are in a competition, believe it or not. Before you even get to the interview, what you need to do is research the company. The questions that I hate to get in an interview is a candidate asking me, tell me more about how the company was founded, or tell me more about when the company started, or tell me more about who your customers are. Those are things that you can learn from the website. Those are things you can learn from a simple Google search. Asking me those questions tells me that you want me to either do your work for you, or you just don't consider the job important enough to do that work on your own. Remember, if you're an HR department professional, we're looking for someone who's going to take initiative, who's going to be ambitious, who's going to be a self-starter. Especially if you're in an HR department of one, you need to know how to do these things effectively without being told what to do. So if you're going to an interview and you're expecting them to tell you about them, when these are things that you can research online, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it. Research the company. Learn about the company. If you want to work there, you need to figure out what makes you want to work there. Make a list of the things that you like about the company and why you like those about the company, so that when you're in the interview, you can speak to those things. You can say something to the effect of, I noticed that the company started in 1945 and the name has shifted over time. But throughout the entire life cycle of your company, I can tell that the community involvement has been strong because of A, B, C, and D. The more you share that you know about the company, the more you share you know about the organization and the direction that they're going into, the greater your chances will be to get that next interview if there is another interview. You've got to remember, when you're interviewing for a position, you're competing against the other people who are also interviewing. And some of those people might be internal, but some of those might be external as well. So make the most of the opportunity that you have. If you get a chance to sit in the seat of the interview team, whether it's a panel, whether it's one-on-one, even if it's over the phone, don't take that conversation lightly. Do your research beforehand, because it's going to serve you well. You can be able to set yourself apart from the competition. My next point of advice would be to make sure that you are prepared to explain your experience. Now, some people, and I'm not sure where the people are getting trained in terms of their interview prep, but some people, more often than I would like to see, come into interviews, and if I'm asking an open-ended question, they'll answer it as succinctly as they can. And I get that there's a place for that, but you've got to remember, in the interview, this is your time to brag on yourself. This is your time to share. This is your time to talk about the things that you've done. If you've got statistics to share, if you've got numbers to share, come with those prepared. Be prepared to tell all that you can about your experience, because you're likely not going to get another shot. Don't save the best things about yourself for the second interview, or the third interview, or the fourth interview, because those aren't guaranteed. The only thing that's guaranteed is the opportunity that's in front of you right now, the thing that you're doing at that moment. So maximize that opportunity and tell as much as you can about yourself, and let them get to know you. If your interview team is anything like me, the questions that they're asking you, they're asking them for a reason. Oftentimes when we're going through interviews, of course we have a certain slate of interview questions that we're going to reach through, but there are certain things that come up in your resume, certain things that come up in your application, in your work history, and the things that you say during the interview that's going to spark an idea in me. I'm going to want to dig a little bit deeper. And sometimes when I dig a little bit deeper, it's sometimes to catch you in a lie. If I'm completely honest, sometimes it's to catch you in a truth. I want to learn more about what you're doing. And sometimes it's just for clarification. But be prepared to explain your experiences, but be honest with your experiences. Because the recruiter on the other end, they've done this before. This might be your 10th or 12th or 15th or 50th interview, but multiply that by 10 or 20 for the recruiter. They've done it so many more times than you have. So we have a tendency to kind of sniff out when someone's not being completely truthful, especially when things don't match up on your resume, your application, and what you're seeing in person. So being consistent throughout, and don't leave the recruiter or anyone on the other end to have any questions about your suitability for the position. Use this chance to really put your best foot forward. While you're sharing your experiences, be sure to listen carefully to the questions that you're asked. For example, if the person asks you a very specific question, but you might have a point that you want to make, it's fine to make that point, but make sure you circle back and answer that person's questions. If you don't do that, it comes across as you either not being able to listen effectively, not being able to really follow instructions. You're not really seeing things through from beginning to the end. And you'll notice I kind of talk about that often because as an HR department of one, you have to follow through. You've got to get things done. And especially if you're working by yourself, there's not going to be anyone to check up on you to say, hey, did you do this or did you do that? So if I'm asking you a direct question and you skate around it and you don't really answer it, that's a point against you, because I need someone who's going to be able to talk to me effectively, answer my question, and even if it's not the thing that I want to hear, I need to know that you can tell me things that you might not feel comfortable telling me in the best way possible. How's your delivery? How is your tact? How is your professionalism? All the things. Interviews are uncomfortable. They seem to be high stakes. They have difficult things to get through. You feel like the lights get 10 times brighter. And I get that. But in the interview, this is your chance to not only put your best foot forward, but be as honest and as tactful as possible. So you're in the interview, you're sharing your experiences, you're putting your best foot forward, you're answering the questions in a very deliberate way. But sometimes I see people, what they do is they leave their personality at the door. They turn into a robot. They turn into a machine. They're literally taking orders. I ask a question and they answer it. And I'm not getting any smiles. I'm not getting any personality. There's no humor. There's nothing. And in HR, you need to have a personality. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. It drains me sometimes to be around a lot of people. But even if you are an introvert, you've got to learn how to turn it on and how to turn it off. So you've got to know how to work the room. You've got to know how to read the room. And you've got to understand how to work with people in a variety of different formats and a variety of different levels as well. In your interview, don't damper down your personality. Don't go over the top, but don't damper down your personality. Let your personality shine through. So if that means you need to psych yourself up before you get out of the car, if that means you need to do the superhero stance to make sure you feel powerful, whatever. But make sure you have your personality and it shines through, because we understand from a personality standpoint that the best that we're going to get from you as a candidate, the best we're going to get, the best version of you is going to show up in the interview. 9 times out of 10, in my experience, the best version of that person shows up in the interview. So if you're not excited in the interview, I cannot expect you to be excited on day one. I can expect you to be excited on day 31. You've got to come with the enthusiasm and the personality, unless you want to work more behind the scenes. If you're looking to be a data analyst, if you're looking to be more a bookkeeper, something more behind the scenes, that's fine. Every job has its own personality types that suit that position. But if you're looking to work with people, and specifically if you're looking to work with people in an HR department of one role where you are the sole HR person, you've got to have that personality to bring to the forefront so you can connect with people on a variety of different mediums. So now that you're approaching the end of the interview, you're getting ready to possibly leave. Hopefully you've been asking questions throughout the process. If they ask, hey, do you have any follow-up questions for us? Any other questions you want to ask before we leave? Please don't ask, when can I start? Don't do it. Please don't do it. The candidates, they do it and they think it's so funny. But to you, it might be funny because you probably said it a handful of times. On the other side of it, we hear it all the time. It's really a bum. It's really like, we hear it so often. So don't ask us, when can you start? Don't do it. We get it. Don't do it. Instead, come with thoughtful questions. Come with thoughtful questions. Some of the best questions I've heard from candidates are things like, is there anything that you've seen from me throughout the interview process that will have you to take pause about anything? Is there anything that I can clarify? That's an excellent question because it gives you an opportunity to stand in front of any objections that the hiring team might have and to explain yourself further. Another great question could be, based on my experience compared to the others that you've interviewed so far, how does my experience stack up against the rest of the candidates? That's a fair question. It helps you to see where their head is. Maybe you're the first interview, maybe you're the last interview, maybe you're somewhere right in the middle. That's not a question that many hiring teams would expect, but if you ask it, it's going to force them to give you an honest opinion. And why not give you an honest opinion? It's a genuine question, and it shows that you are serious about the opportunity, you're curious about the chances that you're going to get this opportunity, and you're really interested in working with them. Also, another question that you can ask the hiring team is, what do they most enjoy about working for their team or for their organization, or how long have they been with the company? Again, it shows that you're taking interest in what they do, how they feel, and you're kind of gleaming from them how they're experiencing it. If they really can't tell you why they like it, then it might not be the best place for you. If they are raving about it, and then you can also tell, okay, are they being genuine or are they not being genuine? You can tell. It's going to help you to know, okay, well, this is the place I really want to be. You've got to remember, as you're going through the interview process for any company, whether you're in a company that you're already working in or you're going to a new one, you've got to find an opportunity that's going to work for both you and for them. It should be mutual. Don't just chase titles and don't just chase dollars. Make sure it's a fit. The fit has to be there, or you're going to hate it. You're not going to be fulfilled. So we've gotten all the way through the process. You've done all the work ahead of time where you got your resume, your application, your email, and your contact set up. You went through the interview process. You brought your personality. You answered thoughtfully. You had questions for the team, and you were able to talk about your experiences. Now we're at the close of the conversation. What I would also suggest that you ask is, so what are the next steps in the process? It could be that the next step in the process is to meet the CEO. It could be the next step in the process is to come in for the offer letter. You need to know what is next so that you know what to prepare for. That means if you need to clear your schedule, if you need to prepare for another round of interviews, whatever. It helps you to understand what the next step in the process is. And it also shows them that you're serious about this opportunity. After your interview is complete, no later than the very next day, send a follow-up email to whoever has reached out to you this entire time, whether it's the recruiter, the HR assistant, whoever. Send an email to that email address, but put in the email, address it to everyone who interviewed with you. So make sure you catch their names, however they decide to introduce themselves. Address each person in the email, the follow-up email, and thank them for their time. If you can recall anything that came up in the interview, thanking them for their candor, thanking them for their pleasantness, whatever you can say that makes them know that this is not a generic email that you're just sending to everybody that you interview with. Be super, super specific about how you're interacting, even at this stage of the game, because it's not over yet. It's not over until you are in the seat. So you've got to make sure you are walking this through all the way through to the end. So those are all of my tips on how to ace your HR interview. I hope you found this helpful. If you need further assistance from me and I can help you insert you at a higher level, feel free to book an interview coaching call with me where I can walk you through. We'll spend 60 minutes together. You'll get a 30-minute mock interview from start to finish at the very beginning of the call. And then at the end, we'll walk away with actionable next steps. I'll give you feedback. You'll get a recording of the call so you can see exactly how you interact and how you answer questions. What kind of pauses are you taking? What kind of personality are you showing? All these things are really valuable to know before you go into an interview. When you're interviewing for multiple opportunities, you're likely not going to get that feedback. And really for good reason. They really can't give you feedback because they're so busy. They're interviewing so many people. They don't have time to give everyone feedback. So that's why if you're watching a video like this and you're seriously looking for opportunities to get better, to improve your chances on interviewing and getting the job that you really want, use this opportunity to really shore up your chances to make sure you make the most of your opportunity when you're in that interview seat. I am excited for you to take these interview prep notes. And even if you don't get a one-on-one call with me, I hope that you found this video helpful. If there's anything that sparked a new idea for you or anything that you're doing differently, drop them down below. I'm curious to see what's going to resonate with you. At Talented Teams Consulting, I work primarily with HR Department of One professionals because I understand how challenging your job is, and it's a perfect spot for you to grow your career with intention. Over these 30 days, we've been talking about ways to boost your career and build your career with intention, and the interview process is a very, very clear way to make sure you are positioning yourself for the greatest success possible. If there's any way I can serve you in the future, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to work with you, and I'll talk with you on the next one. Bye.